Great. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar Wednesday for this week. We're really excited to have you all here, and we're so glad you could join us. So my name is Stephanie Fox from the Network One, and I'll be moderating this webinar. We've also got the rest of the team on the call, so we've got Julian Balding, Paul Squirrel, and Lizzie Gold, and they are available to help if needed. So just a bit of housekeeping as usual before I introduce our speaker. I will now give a quick 5-minute intro. Steve Sapka will then talk for 35 minutes. We'll say 15 minutes at the end for a Q&A, and we will finish by 1:55 p.m. London time, so you can be ready for your next virtual appointment. I've muted everyone's microphones. Please do keep them muted at all times. The background noises can be very distracting. If we're calling on you to ask a question, we will unmute your mic. That being said, we would appreciate it if you could keep your videos on so our speaker has some friendly faces to present to. As I mentioned before, our Q&A portion will be at the end, but if you think of a question while Steve is speaking, you can send that to me directly in the chat. So to do this, just go to your chat box, and where it says to, you should see a drop-down menu. Instead of everyone, select Stephanie Fox. I'll go through all of the questions, and I'll select a few to ask Steve Sapka once he has finished speaking. So all of the questions should be sent directly to me in the chat box and not to everyone, because they'll probably get lost. If you would like to ask the question to our speaker yourself, you can opt to do this by typing "I'll ask" next to your question. If you prefer for me to ask the question to Steve, that's totally fine. Just say so. You should hopefully have your Zoom viewing mode set to speaker view. If not, just click speaker view at the top right of your screen. Our speaker will be showing slides on his screen. If you can't see his speaker window when his slides are on the screen, just select show active speaker video. If you've got any technical issues, my colleague Lizzie Gold is on hand, so you can email Lizzie at lizzie.gold@thenetworkone.com, or you can message Lizzie in the chat. We're currently recording this webinar, so if you prefer not to take notes, that's absolutely fine. And if for any reason the system crashes, just wait a couple of minutes and log back in with the same link that you already used to log in this afternoon. Thank you very much. Now, I'm very pleased to introduce our speaker, Steve Sapka, founder of Sapka Communications. Steve started his career in the media department at Crispin Porter Bogusky in 2000. And moved to the communications department several years later. In 2009, he became a vice president and the director of global communications and media relations for all of the CP&B offices, including in Canada and Europe. Under Steve's guidance, CP&B and its clients' work were featured extensively throughout the trade and consumer press, including pieces for the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, and more, plus various television shows around the globe. In June of 2011, Steve opened Sapka Communications. Drawing from a decade of experience prominently positioning the work and clients of Crispin Porter Bogusky, he brings his expertise to clients of Sapka, an independent agency specializing in communications for marketing and advertising firms. So without further ado, I'm very pleased to turn over to Steve Sapka. I think you're on. There we go.
Hey, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. Happy to share some of my knowledge with all of you. My presentation may not be 35 minutes long, but I find that when we talk about PR, I can talk forever. So I hope you have lots of questions because I think that's where we flesh out a lot of important information. So let me share my screen for the presentation. Start from the beginning. Move this up. All right, so I named this presentation "The Cobbler's Son Has No Shoes" because oftentimes, probably 99% of the times when I'm speaking to an agency, this is the situation that we have. You know, they're an agency, they do everything for their clients, and they don't focus on themselves at all. So we always end up saying the cobbler's son has no shoes. And one of the goals of PR and my goals is to help agencies move beyond that. So Currently, there's some challenges that are going on in the industry and some changes. Most importantly, cutbacks, which probably everybody is familiar with. A lot less journalists working out there. So there's less time for them to write about agencies. COVID, of course, is a big issue, which has slowed down some of the pitching and getting stuff picked up in the U.S. and I think around the globe. Black Lives Matters also played a big part in that. Election has dominated the news cycle as well. So at any given time, there's always something going on that keeps journalists busy. So we have to break through that. And along with all of these challenges and changes, there's less news. There's less work going out, less wins, less awards, less things to speak about. And in addition to that, all of these publications need to make money. So there's a lot of pay to play these days. So the question then becomes, so what do you have to offer? First and most important is great work, and be objective about that. We can fill in. We can fill in to build up some steam for the agency, but most important is to have some great work. So we need, on occasion, to have some great work to talk about. That's really what's going to sell you. To have charismatic and knowledgeable sources, leaders with connections and diversity. If I'm going to connect you with a journalist, they want to make sure you know what you're talking about. Journalists have a way of getting through to find out if you're the real deal or not. So when we put you on the phone, have something to say. Don't waste their time, because as I mentioned earlier, time and connection. Time is not something they're working with these days. When you want to reach out to a journalist, give them some sort of a special tip or something that they don't have. What's going on in the industry that you may be doing that you're way ahead of the game on, and you want to talk to a journalist about it and educate them. They love that. If you're going to pitch a story, have great visuals for it. If you're talking about new hires, have a great picture. Or if you're doing a trends piece or something, create a beautiful infographic. There's always a place where you can get it posted. Don't spend a ton of money doing, an infographic. It shouldn't be super costly to you, but it should be something that, if it's going to represent the agency, looks terrific. In hot topics now are the future of work. Everybody's writing about the future of work. Of course, politics, TikTok, Facebook regulations. How is it affecting your business? So I was speaking with somebody from the Wall Street Journal a few weeks ago, and they're like, how are your brands reacting to what's going on with Facebook? You guys don't have to deal with TikTok. I don't think in most countries. I think the US is the only one that has issues right now with TikTok. But everybody has stuff that's going on in politics. So be able to offer something to the journalist that's not what everybody else is offering. One of the important things that leads into that is read the publications. Know the publications that we're pitching to. Know who the journalists are. Don't waste the automotive journalist time with CPG, because it's not going to get picked up, and they're not going to share it with its CPG reporter, and you're going to wonder what happened. Journalists don't like multiple emails asking them if they're going to post something, especially if you reached out to the wrong journalist. Publications are in business, they don't work for the agencies. So we have to subscribe and support them, which means, again, knowing the publications, they have to make money. Especially nowadays, they're having a hard time because a lot of publications around the world, they made a lot of money doing conferences, and conferences are gone now. So how do they make money? They're doing webinars, but they're still not replacing that revenue that was lost there. But at the very least, you should subscribe to the publications. I've had clients that have gotten press for them in big publications, and they're not that expensive, and they'll ask me to get them the copy. And usually I do tell them to subscribe. It's the least we can do for the publications to pick up our work, and then support them, share the work on social, share what they write about on social, drive traffic to their site. I always say they want to see what the ROI is on a story that they wrote for you. So if they're writing about you, they want to drive traffic to their site. So make sure you're helping do that. And attend conferences and webinars when you can. When we're back to normal, attending conferences is really big. You know, even if you have a low budget, pick one that that you know that there will be a lot of journalists from the publication at, or a number of publications, different publications will be at. For example, in the US, we have the Association of National Advertisers, which does a big conference, and almost every major journalist goes to it. So it's a good place to go. It's also harder to get in touch with everybody because every agency's there trying to reach them. But if Adweek or Ad Age or LBB or the Drum or Campaign put on a presentation, go, because they're going to be there, and it's going to be easier to get in front of an editor and tell them who you are and what you're doing. So you may say to yourself, I'm a small, mid-sized agency and with not so sexy clients. How do we get attention? You know, we're not Wyden and Kennedy, or in the old days, we're not Crispin. What do we do? So first of all, when I first started at Crispin, there were 50 employees, and I started out in Miami. I believe at the time we were about the 12th largest agency in Miami. And so we set goals. The first goal was to be the #1 agency in Miami. Second goal was to be the #1 agency in the Southeast US. And then we grew from there, the #1 agency in the country. And then when Alex Bogusky left, and at the same time I left, you know, we were basically globally considered one of the top agencies in the country. So I'm gonna go back to this, but hopefully you have some questions about that, because there's a lot of info there. Take advantage of memberships and pay to play. So again, you're a small agency. You don't have a bunch of work to talk about now. How do you get some visibility? Thought leadership is one of them. I'm not a big fan of putting up thought leadership on your website. I'm not a big fan of blogs. I believe that if you're going to write something, make it good enough that we can get it out there and have a publication pick it up. You're reaching a whole new audience. You're not talking to yourself. You're not talking to your employees. You're reaching a whole new audience. So thought leadership, put some great thought into it. Share something that people want to read, and then get it posted, and then share it away, especially LinkedIn. Be sure to use your LinkedIn properly. When I say memberships here in the US, we have the 4As. Everybody has some sort of an organization that they're probably members of. Make sure you're using that to the fullest extent. For example, some of them will post press release. Some of them will post thought leadership, especially now during COVID. You know, they've made adjustments and will post thought leadership pieces. Make sure you're taking advantage of everything. Serve on committees on organizations and submit to those blogs on some of those organizations. As I just mentioned, whatever organization you're a part of, submit to their blog, your thought leadership, but also serve on committees. A huge part of this business is relationships. So make sure you're getting out there. Make sure you are being seen. Make sure you have a great committee and a great group of friends in the industry that you can bounce ideas off and talk to. I know the Network One is one great place for you to have a community, but it's really important. Relationships are really important, and nobody can talk about your business the way you can talk about your business. So the more you can get out in front of people and tell them what you're doing, the better. when I mentioned some publications are now pay to play, Adweek has corporate sponsorships. A lot of times you'll look in these publications, and you'll say to yourself, how are these publications getting these podcasts? How are they getting these presentations? Well, they're paying for them. And they're not cheap. I think some, Adweek corporate sponsorships are 50 grand. You may get 2 or 3 podcasts out of it. AdH has an AMP column, which I believe is global. The Drum is global with their open mic. Little Black Book is something that you can subscribe to and post your news. So those are 3 publications, and Ad Forum, where you can post news, where you can post thought leadership, where they will ask questions, where you can respond to and be part of the copy. So wherever you can, take advantage of those. And those 3 pubs, nothing there is super expensive. I think they're all under, depending on size, under 5,000 for a year. So I think those are really worth it. And then, of course, think outside the trades. When we were the 12th largest agency in Miami, the local business journals were very important to, and the local publications were very important to our success in moving to that next level of getting to be Southeast Agency of the Year and the #1 agency in Miami. So make sure the local business and the local major newspapers know who you are. Work those journalist relationships. Take them out to lunch or coffee. Let them know what you're doing. Let them know what's going on in the business. Egotist is a publication. I know there's one in London. I don't know how active it is, but there are many in the US. And marketing blogs. You may look at just the 4 or 5 top marketing trades, but there are probably 400 or 500 marketing blogs. Some of them are very good and will write about you. I just found a new one last week. I reached out to the founder on LinkedIn, so now I'll be having some of my clients on that marketing blog, and it's well respected. And they were just quoted in an Adweek article. I've been doing this for 10 years. There's always a new one that you find that's out there. That's, again, a good opportunity to raise the visibility of the agency and get your story out there. Of course, verticals, food and beverage. A lot of that, my clients are doing food and beverage. There are plenty of food and beverage publications out there that are interested in marketing stories. Make sure you investigate all of them. And then, of course, management and leadership angles for business publications. What are you doing differently? How are you managing COVID? How are you managing work from home? When are you going back to the office? If you think you are a first at doing something, look into it, have a conversation with the journalist and see if that's big enough for a story, if others are following suit. And most important is to be ready. And when I say be ready, I mean when you start going out there, when you hit up a journalist, some of the first things they're going to do, as well as clients, is look at your website. So what does your website say about you? If a brand is going to entrust their brand to you, if someone's going to entrust their brand to you, they want to make sure that you handle your own brand very well. And that leads back to the cobbler's son has no shoes. That doesn't really work anymore. At Crispin doesn't work. And if you look at all of the best agencies that are out there, anywhere in the world, chances are they are very much aligned on social and their website. Everything's consistent. Everything looks sharp. Everything looks like a brand. So really important. And I look at, for my clients, I'm always looking at what they have out there on social, looking at their website, asking them why some stuff is missing. Just trying to keep all of my clients sharp. I have a call later today. I had noticed something with one of my clients in their Vimeo page. It just doesn't look good. So I have a call today with a client on how they can fix that up. The same thing with LinkedIn. Make sure that your profiles are perfect. LinkedIn is an amazing, even more important tool now than it ever has been. Make sure you're connecting with journalists. Really build up your LinkedIn profile. Again, um, that helps with building your community, and it ends up being your own press channel where you can share great news. And keep in mind that what you share on LinkedIn is not what you share on Facebook or Instagram. Um, I started working with one large agency, and for a while they were sharing pictures of their dogs on LinkedIn. So I had to say that has to stop. Take that down now. That's not the best use of LinkedIn for your business. So that's it for the presentation. So what kind of questions do we have?
So we've already got a few in. Someone has said, if an agency like mine opened an office in the US and wanted to get attention, what would you recommend as priorities? Social media, trade media like Adweek, or to join associations and go to conferences?
Making sure journalists are aware of what you're doing, I think, is most important. Um, Followed by once we get back to conferences, going to conferences and introducing yourself there. But making sure journalists are aware of the agency and what they're doing is number one. It's something that I certainly can help with. I know journalists at all the publications. So that's most important. Social media for introducing to the U.S. I think the only thing is LinkedIn. Would be really wonderful for sharing that news. Um, but other than that, and again, if I'm going to make an announcement, I'm going to say, why are you doing it strategically? Why is it the most important thing for the agency? What is your work look like? How many people? Where's the office? All of that goes into telling the story of who you are. And one other thing I want to mention is if you're planning something, a move to the U.S., you should already have some relationships with U.S. journalists, whether that's through PR or through on your own efforts, because all publications will write about great work globally, and that's the best way to get in the door with pubs, is sharing great work for great brands. That still provides traffic for the site, and of course it's always great for you. I mean, that's your ad campaign. All right, go ahead.
Sorry, fantastic. Thank you. We've had another question from the audience. They've said, how much negotiation room do you believe trade publications have for their sponsored content opportunities?
I don't think a lot for the sponsored content. I've often had calls with their salespeople, and I kind of joke around and be like, so you guys could work like half price here, right? I mean, this is like your rate sheet. And it's not. If you wanted a package, it's 50 grand and this is what they offer you. Now, when you're talking about Ad Age Amp has different rates. So if you're an agency that has 100 people, you're not paying the same as an agency that has 5,000 people. They may be paying 5 for 10,000 and you may be paying 2,000, but that's more for the profiles. The profiles on the sites, I think like LBB for a profile, it's like 2,000, and that's not negotiable. So I've never heard of it really being negotiable. You may be able to add something to it. For example, a can opportunity. Sometimes they will let you add something to it if you can think of something. but with the publications, not very flexible.
Thank you. We have a question from Christelle. Are you there?
Yes, hi. Sorry, I
Hi.
have a 4-year-old at home, so I figured I would not put myself on video. Thanks for this great chat. I just wanted to ask 2 quick questions. So one, we are a Canadian agency starting to work on some really cool international mandates, and was wondering if you had any tips for, I know you just said, any kind of great global work can be shared, but, any tips for getting interest from a US or, European-based kind of publication in our industry to get them to include us even though we're Canadian, and maybe not put too much focus on the Canadian angle. So that's my first question. Actually, let's focus on that one.
All right, so it's a great question. In the US, I'm always wondering how we can get Canadian press to write about US clients. So what are you doing differently? Why are you expanding? Why does London need an office, one of your offices there? How are you going to go about business differently? So if you come in with a different strategy, a different angle, a different opinion, that's always going to get their attention. Of course, if there's a connection to them via the brand, that's great as well. And if you have one thing that's really important is a lot of these publications would rather talk to a brand. So if you have work for a German company, and you can get the CMO of that German company to speak to the press, there's nothing better than that. I used to get stories in the New York Times, and Stuart Elliott would write the agency's name in the last paragraph, and my clients used to be like, can we get him to move our name up? And I'm like, your name is in the New York Times. It's a story about your work. That's better than anything. That your name is in there. So a CMO connection that believes in you as an agency is great. If they have, and I would assume you're opening an office because there are brands there. So that's a great connection and a great way to get in. And then just a great strategy story in general. Everybody loves a great strategy story. So that works. And I know in Canada you have Strategy Magazine. Sometimes they'll pick up US great strategy stories, but a lot of times they are looking for, Canada stories unless there's something break out. So we just have to brainstorm on what's going to help sell your story in their publication to their readers. Is that helpful?
Thank you so much. I think the CMO angle is actually a really wonderful one. I think that's maybe how we'll be the most successful, because we've got some great connections there and in Europe and in the US. And you're right that going through them will likely be much easier. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. There was just a story about a new agency starting, and it got picked up because Klarna was one of the clients. I think Klarna's out of Sweden. And so it might have been a British agency, but we heard it all over the US that they had started, and that Klarna was their first client. And that's always good too. If you're going to open an office in another country, start with a piece of business, you're going to get coverage. The new guy in town, the new guy or gal in town has come in and already won a piece of business out of our market. What's going on here? So that's great.
I was just going to ask if you had any, my other question was just if you had any tips. I'm sure this will help all of us. Like since COVID, you were saying build those relationships with those journalists, take them out for lunch. Obviously that's more difficult, but have you seen them being open to do like a Zoom coffee chat, or, what's been the best way you found to interest them in actually having a conversation beyond just sending them an email and responding by email?
Mm-hmm. I have had that experience of trying to connect somebody with via Zoom. It honestly took me 2 months to get it happen, of me staying on this journalist to make it happen. She finally did it. She's homeschooling 2 kids, plus she's working for a publication. So they don't have, like everybody, they're squeezed for time. But again, it goes back to making sure you have a good story to tell when you do get them on the phone. my person was a production company that's doing amazing work. And this was a creative journalist. So it was really important to them to find out about it. But why is it so urgent that you need to speak to them? What's your story? What's going on that they can take 15 to 20 minutes of their time to have a Zoom call with you? And one more thing I want to say about that too is a lot of my clients are not in New York City. They're in Chattanooga, Tennessee, in Boulder, Colorado, San Francisco, Austin, Pennsylvania, Florida, Kentucky. When you live in New York and things are normal, you can be walking down the street and bump into journalists and say, oh, let's have a quick coffee. I want to tell you about something that's going on. You can't do that when you're in other cities. So that again brings back the importance of when the conferences are back up and running, make sure you hit those conferences, because one, it shows these publications that you support them. And two, you get to see journalists.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the next question because we've got quite a few coming in. So someone has said, you refer to going back to conferences, but it's becoming rapidly apparent that online meetings like this are going to be the norm. It's not conducive to networking. How else do you network?
LinkedIn. I really think everybody needs to invest some time into make sure that they're using LinkedIn in the best possible ways that they can. Find out, I always tell my clients and if you're going to do a web conference like this, find out who else is going to be at the conference. Reach out to them on LinkedIn. Don't just send a friend request, but send a note. Say, we're both going to be attending this webinar. I saw your profile. I think we should talk offline sometime. Like, you have time to jump on a call. So I think LinkedIn right now is really an important tool for all business. Also, you can, you can pay to increase visibility of some great story that you have about the agency on LinkedIn. So you want to reach out to CMOs. So I would just really invest in that. LinkedIn does have, and you can reach out to me after about this, but LinkedIn does have a sales team, and they have sales teams for smaller agencies. So just know all your opportunities there, because that's really the virtual networking site out there. And again, I think it's really important not to just friend somebody, but to not to just connect somebody on LinkedIn, but have a reason for connecting with them. Many times people reach out to me. I don't know why they're reaching out to me. They're recruiters. They're not going to recruit me. So are they just looking to come into my LinkedIn and look at who I have so that they can recruit from my LinkedIn connections? So they never tell me why they want to connect. So usually I don't connect with them. So really, use LinkedIn. And again, that's really important, whether it's a virtual concert or you're attending it when this COVID's over. Find out who else is there ahead of time. Make connections. I tell people that, I have some shy clients. They're not comfortable going to a conference and just walking over, speaking to everybody. So I say, find out who's there, reach out to them on LinkedIn, and plan a coffee while you're there. It makes it a whole lot easier. And if you can go to a conference and have 3 coffees with potential clients or journalists, you're ahead of the game. You've got your money, your return on investment is there. So.
Really good advice. Thank you. Another question, someone has said, how much of the agency's founders' personal branding would you advise should be leveraged to promote the agency?
That's a great question. Because if you think about Alex Bogusky, it was leveraged to the nth degree. And when he left, what happened? So it's important that you have a number of people at the top, including a number of people in creative, that are getting some attention. I always say, who are the 5 or 6 people that you know are lifers at this agency that we can put out there and represent the agency really well? Who are those 5, even 10 people? They shouldn't be all white guys. Where's the women leadership? Where's the minority leadership? It's very funny now when there are 30 under 30s or 40 over 40s. Ones to watch on Madison Avenue. A huge percentage is female and minorities. And if you look back just 10 years, it really wasn't the case. So it's important that you're putting the spotlight on the diversity in your agency.
Fantastic, thank you. Another question. This is a two-parter, so I'll start with the first bit. Journalists must be bombarded with pictures and outreach, etc. How do you break through and follow up consistently and politely without being annoying and a turnoff?
So the question is directed at how do you stay in touch with journalists without being annoying?
Yeah, how do you kind of chase them without irritating them?
When you reach out, make sure that you have something that they should care about. Now, as a PR person, because we're always pitching them, we can stay in touch with them and to check on their kids. Friend them on Instagram and Facebook, which I don't recommend for just an agency. But that's what I do. I really get to know who they are. I know that one journalist is involved with pet rescue. So if I see things around pet issues and rescues, I'll send it to her. So that's really, I think that honestly, I think that's really a PR job, a PR person's job. It's a lot harder as the owner of the agency to do that, but it can be done if you have stories to tell. Just keep that in mind. It's their time. So what do you have to offer them at first to get in the door? And with the holidays coming up, I don't want everybody to go out and start sending things, but what is your plan for staying in touch with journalists over the holidays? Are you sending out a creative card? And that's probably not a store-bought card. A lot of publications write about the creative holiday cards that they get. So do you have a way to show off your skills as an agency in a communication like a holiday card? And if that's the case, then that's terrific. And they may even write about it. Or say you have a liquor brand and there is a journalist that you've had with before, or a candy brand that you're working with, send them a little package for the holidays. It's harder now because you got to find out their home address, and some people may not want to share their home addresses, but some do, and they appreciate those little things. You have to remember, journalists don't make a ton of money. You're not bribing them, but when you can show your appreciation, you should. And that includes when we're back to normal and you can take them out to a nice fancy dinner. I know that journalists always like a nice fancy dinner.
Yeah, that's, I mean, who doesn't like a nice fancy dinner or some chocolate? So the second part of the question was, what's the feeling about working with a PR person versus agency leadership reaching out to journalists directly?
I think that a PR person can give you better guidance. I've seen it all, especially with Alex, and the way Alex had it set up was every journalist that called would get his assistant, and assistant would forward the call to me. I would find out what they wanted, and could manage it from there. If it was something that I could answer, that was fine. If it wasn't, I could go into Alex and say, Ad age wants to talk to you about this situation. And at that point, he could say yes or no. If a journalist has your phone number, your direct line, they can put you in an awkward position sometime when they have a scoop on a story and they're calling you, asking you, did you lose this piece of business? Did you win this piece of business? It doesn't give you a chance to come up with a statement for it. So yes, it's good for you to have those relationships. Journalists do like to have direct relationships with the principals at agencies and CMOs at brands. They love it. But a lot of times it's great to have that middle person that can really make things happen, make sure they're getting exactly what they need as well. So there are benefits to it.
Great, thank you. So another question, someone has asked, how do you get to be the person that journalists will call for a quote on a topical issue?
Making sure that they know that you are the expert that they're looking for. So if you are the person that your agency is the best at shopper marketing, after the journalist knows that you are experts on this, she's had a conversation with you, she knows you know what you're talking about, then she knows she can come back to you and ask you questions. A lot of times the journalist will reach out to their low-hanging fruit, which oftentimes is the big agencies where they know they can go in and get something. So if you can go in and say that you are the experts on shopper marketing, and prove it and continuously send her effectiveness case studies and ideas, then she's going to, he or she's going to reach out to you for stories.
Perfect, thanks so much. Another question, got quite a few. So someone has said, news and events move fast these days. How do you balance long-term communications planning with the need to be topical?
Well, that's a great question. And I think agencies in general, it's their job to always be doing something that's topical. That's what makes creative wonderful and gets picked up. So that's first, is that you have some work that's being topical. You know, we'll look out through a whole year and say, for a year's planning, and say, well, all of these conferences are coming up. So in this country, Expo East and Expo West, they're health food conferences. What do we have to share there, and who from a brand can speak at it? So I think in general, if the agency, first of all, should be doing something topical. And then I don't know if I'm answering that question all the way, but in between the topical conversations are, you know, new hires, new wins, thought leadership pieces, and thought leadership pieces obviously should be topical as well. So we can insert ourselves into the conversation with the knowledge of the agency.
Perfect, thanks. I think we've got time for just one more question. So someone has said, for a new agency startup, is it better to build a brand around the founders and their reputations, or start fresh and explain what the agency is all about and why it's different?
Start with the founders. However, again, I'm going to go back to diversity. I work with an agency that started with 6 white guys. Not the best idea to send out a picture with 6 white guys, because Cindy Gallup, who is has a loud voice in our community, of course, got on them right away saying, where's the diversity? So start with the founders, but make sure it's a diverse group. No matter what the history of the creators of this agency, that's the most important thing. what makes sense for them to open a business? Why would they be opening a business? And then get into how you want to be different. But again, be careful saying, straying from really what you are and trying to be creative about who you are, because if you get too creative about who you are, a brand's not even going to know who you are. In the end, we're all advertising and marketing agencies. So don't play around, in my opinion, don't play around too much with that.
Perfect. All right.
You have
Thank
another
you.
question, or?
I think that's all we've got time for, but actually, if anyone does have any other questions, I'm going to now share your contacts on the screen so they can get in touch with you. So I just want to give you a really, really big thank you for that excellent discussion. We got a lot of super useful tips, and I'm sure that this will be really, really handy for everyone that's joined us for the call and the people who will watch later. So again, really big thank you for that. As I mentioned, if you didn't have time to ask your question, you can contact Steve via email. His email address is now on the screen, and that's steve@sapkacom.com. You can also visit their website, which is www.sapkacom.com. Thank you guys all for coming. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll be holding webinars the same time every Wednesday. So the next one will be held on the 2nd of December, titled Parents Purchase, Kids Inspire, helping you to develop your media toolkit for kids with Giraffe Media. So Giraffe Insights will be sharing the latest insights from their international media viewing study, speaking to 3,500 kids and parents across 9 different markets in order to showcase the power kids have over purchase decisions within the household and the way in which you can effectively reach and engage this important but often forgotten audience. Their research is useful for any leader, strategic planner, or creative whose clients or prospects provide products and services used by children. So you can register for this webinar and all future webinar Wednesdays on our website under events at www.thenetworkone.com/webinars. Thank you very much. Again, really big.
Can I say one more thing?
Of course, yeah, go ahead.
All right. I'm more than 100% happy to have you guys send questions. So please email me questions. If you email me a question, put the network 1 in the subject line, so that I can make sure it doesn't go to spam or anything like that. And I can quickly see that it's a question from this call. So.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. That's really kind of you. You're getting a lot of nice comments in the chat saying thank you. So that's good too. I'm sure that everyone enjoyed it as much as we did. So have a great day, everyone, and look forward to seeing you at another webinar Wednesday soon. Bye, everyone.